Welcome into the Wiltfong Whiparound with Steve Wiltfong. We are live. Today is Monday, November 17th, and I'm your host, Josh Newberg. We got through week 12, which means there's only 2 weekends left in the season and only 2 weeks until the 3-day early signing period beginning on December 3rd, and it is fast approaching. So we are hitting a very pivotal stretch in recruiting. As I've been saying, these final visits mean something, and on Sunday we saw just that. We saw commitments, we saw flips, and we got some new 5-star predictions, a lot of new developments over the weekend, and we are going to talk about it with the great Steve Wiltfong. Excited to talk to Steve today because nobody is more dialed in than this guy at this time of year. But first, you guys do me a favor. Look at this. We almost got us to 100K. How about that? I think we can do it by signing day if you guys help out. Hit subscribe to the Rivals Recruit channel. All right, also, join Rivals today. Get 1 year full access to The Athletic, plus all the On3 national and fan site content as well. Go do it. I'll put a link in the description of this video. Let's bring in Steve Wiltfong. We are going to start in College Station. Some commitments heading into the weekend, some commitments heading out of the weekend, predictions rolling in, 5-star flips. We're going to break it all down in this video. Coming off that historic comeback win over South Carolina, Elko gets that extension heading into the weekend. Steve, let's talk about, first of all, there's 2 commitments, one heading into the weekend, one heading out of the weekend. Let's talk about it.
Yeah, the Rivals Industries number 8 cornerback Raylon Henry out of powerhouse Baltimore St. Francis announced his commitment to Texas A&M prior to kickoff. He was back in College Station, and he chooses Texas A&M over Alabama, Ohio State, and several others, a long physical corner that has all the traits Mike Elko and that coaching staff covet at the position. And then after the ball game, Rivals number 3 safety Jaquan Snell committed to Coach Elko, Coach Ish, and the staff, went public with his plans on Sunday. He is now part of a class that includes Rivals number 1 safety Kamari Dorsey. So Texas A&M putting together an elite defensive back class in 2027. Jaquan Snell, one of the top players in the state of Texas, regardless of position, chooses to play for Mike Elko and the Aggies over Texas, Oklahoma, Ohio State, Michigan, Notre Dame, Oregon, several others. So Texas A&M, they have a great chance to finish with the number 1 class in 2027. They're undefeated. They all but clinched a college football playoff spot in that come-from-behind win over South Carolina. They have the SEC championship game in their sights, and then more importantly, they hope to make a run in the postseason and then do it for years to come. And recruiting is ripping and roaring. There's going to be no shortage of talent lining up to come to College Station.
Yeah, we're going to get back to 2027 in a minute, but 2026 signing day is it's about 2 weeks away, just over 2 weeks away. So, flip predictions. We saw a couple big-time flip targets on campus this weekend, and then three of them. Coming out of the weekend, though, you're dropping predictions. Tell us about them.
Yeah, just logged one right before we went on the air for Houston receiver commit Jaden Warren, a riser in the Rivals 300 out of Iowa Colony, one of the jewels of a Cougars class. But Texas A&M's been working on him all fall. Took his official visit this weekend where he got a chance to get around a lot of the commits during the game on Saturday. Sunday was a lot of meetings with the coaching staff talking about the trajectory of the program, his fit in this explosive offense. You see this Texas A&M receiver core. They got 3 guys eating at a high level right now, all attracted to Jaden Warren. Sam Spiegelman and I predicted Texas A&M to flip Jaden Warren from Houston. Now, Houston trying to get him back to campus this weekend. But right now, all the momentum is with the Aggies. 5-star safety Braylon Womack. The door opened when the Auburn commit, when Hugh Freeze was fired, and the Auburn commit returning to College Station this weekend. He was always one of Texas A&M's most coveted targets, regardless of position, in a safety-centric defense. Braylon Womack and his family had a great time back in College Station, spoke with his dad about the trip this morning. They love the way that this program is developing under Coach Elko, the way that they maintain the relationship with Braylon and the family, even after he committed to Auburn. And there's a lot of trust that they can get the best out of him on the next level. Now, he's going to go to the Egg Bowl on Friday night. It's an absolute crime that game's not on Thursday night, Thanksgiving night. And then he's going to go to the Iron Bowl on Saturday, so he'll get another look at Auburn before making a final decision But I think it's lining up for Texas A&M to flip him, and my Rivals prediction machine forecast now reflects that. And then another prediction that Sam Spiegelman and I
Another one
was 4-star edge rusher Kevin KJ Ford. He's out of Duncanville. He is committed to Florida right now. He's been on 3 game visits to Texas A&M this season. Coach Tony Gerard-Edey leading the charge there, but getting back around Coach Elko and the guys in the program, seeing this Texas A&M defense fly around, the support, the atmosphere, the environment. Texas A&M, I thought, was the early favorite for KJ Ford. Then he picked Florida over Alabama, but here come the Aggies at the end for Ford. I think they land them all in order of confidence. I would go right now, Warren, Ford, Womack, but wouldn't be surprised if they all ended up being in the fold for Texas A&M when all said and done, as they push for a top 5 class. And Josh, these aren't the only 2026 targets still in play. One more I want to mention, Ethan Booby Feaster, receiver out of DeSoto. I think that there's some conversation there. Now, it's going to be a very tough flip from USC. I do not have him in the Texas A&M class, but keeping him warm. And then Lamar Brown, Jace Matthews, I don't see that for Texas A&M right now. I think they'd be very excited getting the 3 guys this weekend and calling it a day and pivoting to 2027. We'll see what else would potentially come in 2026 beyond those guys.
Yeah, one of the hottest teams in America right there, Texas A&M in 2026, but also 2027. You mentioned they have the number 1 class in America. They're going to try to finish with the number 1 class in America. Who else do you think the Aggies are trending for when it comes to 27 class?
Well, it starts with John Meredith, the number 1 ranked corner in the country from Arlington Martin. When I talked to Jaquan Snell after the game on Saturday, and we were getting his commitment story ready, I said, who's the guy you're working on, or who are some of the guys you're working on to get to the fold? And he mentioned John Meredith. I mean, that Texas A&M already an elite defensive back class. Talked with Charles Power, my colleague, director of scouting, this morning, and he said that John Meredith might be the best corner to come out in several cycles. And so John Meredith is someone that Texas A&M is in a good spot early for. I've already predicted him to the Aggies. They're battling Ohio State and Alabama, among others. Would be a major pickup. And I think they're one of the early contenders for Mark Matthews, number 1 offensive tackle in the country. They're in the lead group for Kennedy Brown, 5-star in-state offensive tackle. Madshun Sales, receiver from Indianapolis, likes him a lot. They're in the lead group for Zyron Forstall, David Jacobs, 2 5-star edge rushers. So you go up and down this 5-star group. Albert Simeon, interior offensive lineman from the state of Louisiana. A lot of these guys already have the Aggies as a front runner, have them on the short list. It has to do with the relationships. This Texas A&M staff from top to bottom to the off-field guys do a tremendous job of building real relationships with these guys, to the product on the field, to Coach Elko, his presence, the way he carries himself around the football team, to the fan support and all the opportunities. And we know A&M can go toe-to-toe on the NIL front. They are sport. They are my favorite to finish with the number 1 class in 2027 right now.
Let's talk Ohio State, because the Buckeyes, I'm just going to say it right now, the Buckeyes are the hottest recruiting team in America with 2 weeks to signing day, and they landed another huge commitment on Sunday morning. I wasn't really expecting this to go down, at least not Sunday morning. Steve, tell us about the Buckeyes' latest commitment.
Well, they were able to finalize the process with 4-star edge Dre Quinn, a former Clemson commit that was looking strongly at Texas, Tennessee, Miami, and Georgia Tech. But it was his second visit to Ohio State. Saturday night, started posting on Letterman Rowe's message board that it was going really well for Dre Quinn. By Sunday morning, he was officially in the fold and part of an Ohio State class that ranks number 7 nationally. So big pickup for the Buckeyes down the stretch as they continue to bolster this defensive line.
Yeah, Quinn doesn't end up making it to Texas. That's what you can do when you're the hottest team in America on the recruiting trail. You can get guys to commit when you want them to, and Dre Quinn is now a Buckeye. Huge pickup. All right, then shortly after Quinn announced, Ohio State picks up another commitment.
Yeah, Louisville tight end commit Nick Lauder flips to Ohio State, offered before the game on Saturday. By the end of the day, Sunday, he was committed to his dream school. Loves the way the Buckeyes develop, the atmosphere inside the shoe, pictures himself playing in that kind of environment, being in state, the pride he has. He's excited to be an Ohio State Buckeye. Didn't take long to jump on that opportunity.
Yeah, pretty amazing run Ohio State's on right now. Speaking of, is there any more action when it comes to the 2026 class? We're going to get to 27 in a minute, but 2026 ends in about 2 weeks. More flips to come for Ohio State fans?
Yeah, potentially. They can land 3 more visitors from this weekend. And Lauder, how about Lauder? He was a big riser in the Rivals 300 rankings that came out today. 4-star recruit now, flips from Louisville to Ohio State. So is Braxton Rembert, linebacker committed to Wake Forest, goes 6'5", 205 pounds, a very versatile back 7 defender from the same high school that produced Caleb Downs. He had a great visit. I like the way it's trending for Ohio State. We'll see where it stands, where the dust settles as he goes home, talks things over with his family, and tries to make a final decision. But Ohio State continues to make a major impression on Braxton Rembert. Does he want to play on this stage? Does he want to compete for championships, play at the highest level? Ohio State's track record of development, does he believe in himself to come in and compete alongside the nation's best? If he does, I think he will end up committed to Ohio State. CJ Brona, one of the fastest players in the country in the secondary, committed to Florida, had a fabulous visit to Ohio State as well, talked about the game, the culture, the standard, talking with the coaches, had some good meetings with the coaches on Sunday. I have him projected to ultimately flip to Ohio State as well. We'll see what continues to happen around the Florida program, but I like where Ohio State stands for both of those guys. And don't sleep on the Buckeyes for Darius McKinley, committed to LSU from the Bayou State. His older brother is on the team at LSU, but Ohio State, a major player here, heard it was a great visit and could ultimately see him in the Buckeyes class as well.
Wow, what a finish lining up in Columbus. We'll see what happens, but it sounds exciting. All right, let's move on to 2027. Steve, you had some new predictions coming out of the weekend.
Yeah, the Rivals Industries #2 tight end, Brock Williams, back at Ohio State, spending a lot of time with the guys already in the fold for the Buckeyes in the 2027 class that ranks #3 nationally, including quarterback Brady Edmonds. Now, he's also high on Georgia, high on Texas, going to continue through his process. Already took in a game day in Athens. Has one coming up in Austin for the Arkansas game. But I'm riding with Ohio State right now from the Midwest, #1 team in the country, ultimately landing Brock Williams. We'll see what happens. Georgia's certainly going to have a lot to say about that. And then Abraham Cisse, #6 edge in the Rivals 300, back at Ohio State for the second time this fall. Previous prediction on Penn State, obviously there's been some turnover in Happy Valley. I think the Buckeyes are building a lot of momentum with this exciting pass rush here in 2027.
Absolutely. All right, Ohio State fans, talk to Steve and me. How are you guys feeling about recruiting? 2.5 weeks to go, less than 2.5 weeks to go till signing day. A couple flips left on the board. Great class regardless of what happens over the course of the next 2 weeks, but these are exciting times in Columbus. Talk to us, comment section below. Let's talk Indiana. We said coming into the weekend, this was a historic recruiting event for the Hoosiers, and it was just that. Huge win over the weekend, and a new 2026 commitment coming on Sunday. Steve, tell us all about it.
Yeah, receiver LeVar Keys out of High Matha in the Baltimore area commits to Indiana, former Penn State commit that visited earlier in the fall. Wolves coach Shanahan, this explosive Indiana offense, sees himself making plays for years to come in Bloomington. He was one of the top remaining targets for Indiana. They are happy to have him in the fold. Now they pivot to safety, Josh. DeMonte Timms from the Peach State took an official visit this weekend. He is committed to Colorado, but tells me that Indiana is his leader coming out of the trip. Louisville still battling, but Timms had a great time with the players on the team. Ola Adams leading the charge in recruiting him. The Hoosiers offered him early, have never given up on him, canceled some other visits this weekend at the position to focus on Timms, and I think it's going to pay off for IU when all's said and done as they look to add another guy that they view as a difference maker to this 2026 class.
All right, speaking of difference makers, let's talk 5-star wide receiver Monshun Sales of the 2027 class. We've been talking about Sales when it comes to Indiana this weekend. He was there. What are you hearing? What's the intel on Sales?
Well, Indiana is definitely one of the front runners. We've talked a lot about Alabama and Ohio State for Monshun Sales. We need to talk about Indiana more. He's been there twice for games this year. Sees a program that will allow him to check all the boxes. He's looking to check on the next level, playing at the highest level, being developed to be the best player he can be, playing in the biggest games, especially watching them beat Oregon on the road. That was a game-changing moment in this recruitment. Before that, he certainly understood that the culture was changing around Indiana and the will to win and play at the highest level. Oregon was proof of concept, and they haven't lost since. And they look like they're going to cruise right into the Big Ten title game. They are on the bye week, and then they play Purdue. So Indiana is a lock to play for the Big Ten championship. And Madshon Sales sees some guys from his high school performing at a high level. Receiver Omar Cooper. So look, they're battling Alabama, Ohio State, Notre Dame's in there. He's going to be at Michigan for the Ohio State game. Tennessee, Ole Miss, Texas A&M, Miami, Oregon. They're suitors from coast to coast. But Indiana definitely has a chance to keep the number one player in state in 27 in Madshon Sales.
All right. Historic weekend, Steve. Fill us in on the rest of the intel coming out of this one.
Yeah, the Hoosiers had a lot of four-star prospects, rivals 300 recruits inside Memorial Stadium on Saturday. Ashton Ace Alston, one of the top corners in the Midwest out of Cincinnati, had a fantastic visit. He put out his top 10 a couple weeks ago. Indiana may be closer to the top of that list. I think Indiana's setting the tone for a couple four-star offensive linemen, Mason McDermott from Noblesville and Hunter Mallinger from Wisconsin. Hunter Mallinger's brother, Reese Mallinger, twin brother, also very high on IU. I could see all of those guys in Indiana's class. So the Hoosiers this season really resonating with the next wave of talent, these juniors that are having terrific seasons.
Georgia and Texas resulted in a big recruiting weekend for the Dogs, and they get the big win at home in front of Jared Curtis, and many of their other top commitments were there. Also, some big-time 2027s on campus. Let's start with 2026. Jared Curtis was there back in Athens after all that stuff with Vanderbilt. So can we now say with absolute certainty that he's going to sign with Georgia?
We cannot. I still think that Vanderbilt has a pulse in this recruitment, and communication will continue with the Vanderbilt staff. Talking to some sources around Jared Curtis, one of the biggest factors in his recruitment as he winds this thing down is he wants to play early. And so I think he wants to play as a true freshman. So dialogue will continue with the Georgia staff, and a lot of love for Georgia. We came right out of the gate. You asked me a direct question. I think he still signs with Georgia. And this program that he's been committed to twice, loves Coach Smart, loves Coach Bobo, and loves the players that they would put around him in Athens. But Vanderbilt is still in the mix here. They still haven't put an NIL opportunity on the table. The season that they're having, the opportunity to be a true freshman starter at the local program. There's some exciting things about Vanderbilt, and the door is not shut on the Commodores at this point in the process.
We know heading into this decision, well, he committed to Georgia twice, but the final time he committed to Georgia was really Oregon and UGA, and it sounds like Vandy checks a lot of those boxes, but do they have the NIL power to compete with what Curtis was offered by Oregon and Georgia in the first place?
Well, I think Oregon had the best offer on the table, so I'm not necessarily sure that Jared Curtis is someone that's out there chasing.
But I'm sure they were in the ballpark. I mean, so if Georgia was in the ballpark of Oregon, is Vandy, can they, because you just said they check a lot of the boxes that Curtis is looking for, but can they come in that ballpark when it comes to NIL?
I believe Vandy thinks they can, and I think another box that they need to check to have a chance to land Jared Curtis is Clark Lee signing an extension before the early signing period. If Clark Lee does not sign an extension, which then also keeps offensive coordinator Tim Beck long-term in Nashville, most likely, I don't think that Vanderbilt would have any chance. I think they still have a small chance right now and are not out of the Jared Curtis sweepstakes by any stretch, as I talked to you this morning. But Georgia, still a program that he has a lot of love for, and his family certainly does too.
All right. You're not sounding the flip sirens yet for Georgia fans, but you are saying that there's a pulse there with Vanderbilt. All right. UGA. We'll talk more about who was on campus. Now, when it comes to 2027, there were a ton of talented recruits there, starting with David DJ Jacobs, Elijah Haven, KJ Green. The list goes on. Steve, what's the inside scoop on Georgia's big visit weekend?
Well, David DJ Jacobs is the number one player in the state per the Rivals industry, one of the headliners on campus, one of the premier pass rushers in the country, has Georgia in his lead group with Texas A&M, Miami, Notre Dame. he's a Georgia legacy. His dad obviously played for the Bulldogs, great familiarity with the program. They love the consistency at Georgia. They love how the team just continues to improve throughout the season, how electric it is inside Sanford Stadium. All those things make him feel at home at Georgia. Georgia's certainly excited to get him back around it as he's taken a lot of visits elsewhere during the fall. Rivals industry number one quarterback Elijah Haven was on campus. They said it was one of the best game day atmospheres they've been part of, his dad told me. Talked about it being an elite program with a proven winning track record and a track record of being developed. So Georgia going to push Alabama maybe for Elijah Haven. Alabama was the perceived favorite coming in. The state's number 3 prospect overall, blue chip edge rusher KJ Green. Been a lot of Bama buzz around him, some South Carolina USC buzz. He said Georgia was incredible, talked about the energy and atmosphere, electric environment, and then said the coaching staff really stood out to him as well because of the development and success. Georgia's a contender for the number 7 corner in the country, Jerry Outhouse from the Lone Star State. Rivals 300 safety Adrian Cole had a fantastic visit. Obviously, it was an amazing weekend for the Bulldogs because in 2028, they landed the number 1 recruit in the country, Jaden Wade, on Sunday on the Rivals YouTube channel, announced his commitment to the Bulldogs over Ohio State and Texas. He had a great experience. Obviously, they offered Gage Weddle, Rivals number 1 ranked athlete in the 2028 class. I don't want to make anyone feel old, but this is Eric Weddle's son, NFL All-Pro, future Hall of Famer, Defensive Player of the Year type that his son offered by Georgia over the weekend, and he was blown away by the environment and atmosphere at Georgia. And before we pivot to another program, Josh, logged a prediction in favor of Georgia in 2026. 4-star offensive lineman Tyreek Jemison, a major riser in this Rivals 300 rankings, an absolute road grader at the point of attack, in-state recruit, formerly committed to Kentucky, decommitted last month, visited Georgia last month, was back at Georgia over the weekend, will take his official visit this coming weekend. I love the way that's shaping up for Georgia as they look to add 1 more offensive lineman to a class that ranks number 2 nationally in 2026.
We're talking Tennessee. The Volunteers are currently working on a top 10 class, 2 weeks until the 2026 signing day, but we got a few pivotal recruits to talk about today, Steve, and let's start with the one that was in Knoxville over the weekend, former A&M pass rusher commitment. Jordan Carter was on campus, his recruitment. It's heating up. What's the intel coming out of Knoxville?
Yeah, it goes by Breeze Carter. Tennessee would love to see him breezing in the backfields for years to come on the next level. This was his 2nd game visit to Neyland Stadium since he reopened the process last month, and I like where it's trending for Tennessee. That's the vibe I'm getting right now. The Orange. They got to hold off Georgia Tech. He's also going to take a trip to Auburn, but I think Tennessee is setting the tone for Jordan Breeze Carter at this point in his process.
All right, that's an exciting recruitment. Now, let's talk about a big flip that could be in the works. Defensive lineman J.J. Finch. Steve, he's committed to Alabama. You were at his game on Friday night. What is the inside scoop on Finch?
I thought he would tell me that his recruitment was shut down and he was locked in with Alabama after attending the Crimson Tide's win over LSU, but he was at Tennessee the weekend before that, and the Vols have his interest. He thinks he is a perfect fit in that defense for Coach Banks, Coach Garner and company, and he continues to keep Tennessee very warm. Spoke to another source around Finch on Monday morning, and he corroborated that Tennessee is very much in the mix for the newly minted 4-star recruit from Indianapolis that played a fantastic football game on Friday night, Josh. Warren Central went out and beat Center Grove on the road, a big upset in the Hoosier State playoffs. He played every snap on defense, was relentless in the backfield a ton, very disruptive. Easy to see why these SEC programs coveted him so much, and Tennessee is working hard to flip him from Alabama down the stretch.
So with signing day just over 2 weeks away, who else is Tennessee making a late push for?
There's a few guys still on the board. Running back remains a major position of need for Tennessee, and Amari Latimer, Wisconsin commit, is at the forefront of their board. He is someone that they've always been high on, and he's had a relationship with, got him to campus a few weeks ago, and I think Tennessee is emerging as one of the major contenders to flip him. Miami also in the mix. I did like Ohio State earlier in the season, but they actually flipped Legend Bay from Tennessee. Yeah. Their bun on the offensive side of the ball for a skill position standpoint. So maybe that helps Tennessee in the long run with Amari Latimer, who's a riser in the Rivals 300, 210-pound physical back between the tackles that can really run, has all the traits to be one of the best tailbacks in the SEC. Tennessee in the middle of that recruitment. Offensive line is another area where they would like to add another guy that they think could be a championship-level difference maker. Micah Champ-Smith, they're at the forefront of that recruitment, committed to UCLA. Ole Miss is involved. Illinois is in the picture for Micah Smith. He took a visit to Ohio State, but I think they're out. But Tennessee is a program that I think is moving up the board for Micah Smith. And then Genevieve Carr, committed to Florida right now, but Tennessee strongly in the mix there. And then Carter Gooden's a 4-star edge rusher committed to UCLA that I'm expecting at the Tennessee-Vanderbilt game. But we'll see if something were to develop with Jordan Carter beforehand or one of those other targets. JJ Finch.
All right. Now, there was some other news in Tennessee land on Sunday. Boo Carter, the disgruntled sophomore DB / punt returner, is no longer a part of the team. It sounds like after a meeting with Josh Heupel and some coaches, he was dismissed from the volunteer program. Now, you exchanged some texts with his camp afterward. What's maybe the intel on who could be involved with Boo Carter once he does hit the transfer portal?
The NFL season continues to rip and roar, and who doesn't love to see their favorite NFL teams live and in person, especially when you can go with family or friends. But tickets aren't easy to find, and getting deals on last-minute tickets can be frustrating when all you want is to be there for that moment your team runs out on the field. Well, thankfully, the Game Time app gives the advantage back to the fans. It's the hack for unlocking amazing ticket experiences, and it only takes a few simple clicks. The app is easy to use, and the Game Time guarantee means that you can trust that you'll get 100% authentic tickets on time and at the best price. Plus, those fees are included, so what you see is what you pay. And you can even get NFL games as low as $100, and that's why I use the Game Time app. It's super simple, and it makes the experience of buying great seats a breeze. And one of the coolest features I've seen with the Game Time app is the lowest price guarantee. Game Time will credit you 100% of the difference to guarantee you're getting the lowest price if you find cheaper tickets elsewhere. So here's what we're going to do. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the promo code Wiltfong, WILTFONG, for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. That's Wiltfong, WILTFONG, for $20 off. Game Time, last-minute tickets, lowest prices, guaranteed.
Yeah, some programs that I believe they're expecting some mutual interest from when his transfer portal process takes off. Texas Tech, Nebraska, Miami, Louisville, Kentucky, Alabama, Texas A&M, some of the programs mentioned. He's going to take 1 to 2 visits before quickly locking in his future and starting his next chapter. But Boo Carter is a very talented guy that made some big plays during his career at Tennessee, was also a factor on special teams. We'll see what a fresh start somewhere else with a new coaching staff can do for him. But I do think he will be very coveted out of the transfer portal.
Yeah. All right, Tennessee fans, talk with us. How you feeling about this 2026 class? 2 weeks until signing day. What additions do you want to see? Let us know. Put it in the comment section below.